Welcome to the Exposure Magazine podcast from the heart of the British nuclear test survivor community.
The NCCF launches Ground Zero grants. Decades ago, on remote Pacific outcrops like Christmas Island and across the scorched Australian outback, thousands of young British servicemen stood in the shadow of the mushroom cloud. They were the men who stood at Ground Zero, witnesses to the terrifying dawn of the atomic age. Today, however, those same men are engaged in a new battle. It isn't against a foreign power or a scientific frontier, but a battle against time, declining health, and the mounting, often overwhelming costs of care. The strategic launch of the Ground Zero grants by the Nuclear Community Charity Fund marks a pivotal moment for this aging community. As the veterans of the 1950s and 60s enter their 80s and 90s, the charity is pivotally shifting its resources to meet a looming crisis. Welcome to this special audio feature from Exposure Magazine. I'm your host, and today we're exploring our lead investigation. NCCF launches Ground Zero grants. At the heart of our story is a concept we call the care gap. It's a term that sounds clinical, but the reality is deeply personal. It represents the unbridgeable chasm between the support provided by the state and the actual lived cost of maintaining a life of dignity. For many veterans, this isn't just a financial deficit, it's a direct challenge to their independence and their right to age with honor. As we look closer at the reality these veterans face today, we see a community that is no longer asking for the impossible, only for the security they were promised under the nation's collective conscience. The crisis of the care gap. To understand why these grants are so vital, we have to look at the perfect storm currently facing the UK's elderly veteran population. This isn't just an anecdotal struggle, the data is stark. According to the Royal British Legion's 2014 household survey, the scale of the challenge is immense. We're talking about nearly 500,000 of our adult ex-service community battling depression, while some 370,000 report the heavy, silent burden of loneliness in their later years. But the struggle is physical as much as it is mental. The survey reveals that approximately 720,000 of these individuals face significant difficulties with self-care, the basic tasks of daily living, such as bathing or dressing. Another 630,000 struggle simply to get around outside their homes. For the British nuclear survivor community, these aren't just the standard hallmarks of aging. Their needs are uniquely complex, often compounded by a web of health issues, from cataracts and dental problems to the psychological weight of intergenerational trauma. It's a community that includes not just the veterans themselves, but their families, descendants, and anyone who encountered radiological or chemical exposure in service to the nation. As the charity's leadership puts it, we recognized that our community's needs were evolving faster than our response mechanisms. For years, the support available was often a patchwork, leaving veterans to navigate a system that didn't always understand the unique nature of their service. The care gap became a thief of peace of mind. It is this specific shortfall that the Ground Zero support grants are designed to bridge, a strategic shift in support. This launch represents a fundamental shift in the NCCF's operational philosophy. We are seeing a move away from ad hoc, reactive assistance towards a structured, evidence-based system of care. To understand how this intervention works on the ground, we have to look at the cold logic of the funding itself. The mechanics of the Ground Zero grants are precise. They are designed as a financial contribution toward ongoing care costs where they exceed state funding. Crucially, these are structured as single, non-recurring payments. The charity doesn't just sign a blank check. The grant is calculated to mitigate the care gap over a maximum 12-month period. The amount provided is determined as a percentage of the assessed care gap, and it's subject to a fund ceiling, a maximum limit set annually by the charity's trustees to ensure the fund remains sustainable for the years ahead. It's important to distinguish this new initiative from the NCCF's existing Care Wellbeing and Inclusion Fund, or CWI. Think of the CWI as the immediate physical intervention. It's the fund that provides the hardware of dignity, installing a wet room, repairing a broken heating system, or providing a much-needed respite break. In contrast, the Ground Zero grant is the long-term financial bridge, Together, they create a comprehensive safety net that addresses both the sudden physical crisis and the sustained financial need. Crucially, the charity has recognized that many are already drowning. They've confirmed that applications for care agreements already in place will be considered, a vital lifeline for those already struggling with costs they simply cannot meet. However, moving to such a structured program requires a level of rigor that ensures every pound is used exactly where it's intended. Rigour, stewardship, and the human element. To access this support, the NCCF has implemented an assessment process that is as thorough as it is fair. Applicants must provide a local authority financial assessment to establish an objective baseline of need. They must also show that they've pursued NHS continuing healthcare support. But the rigor goes further. The charity requires evidence that if an NHS assessment was denied, reasonable appeal opportunities were explored. To some, this might feel like an extra layer of bureaucracy. However, these requirements are acts of responsible stewardship. By demanding this evidence, the charity ensures that charitable donations aren't simply replacing state support that should, by right, already be there. This stewardship extends to their wealth cap policies, ensuring that funds are used to provide actual care for the veteran rather than inadvertently protecting inheritance assets for the next generation. This is reinforced by a zero-tolerance policy towards fraud. These aren't barriers, they are safeguards to protect the community's resources. Even the grant calculations are benchmarked against more economical care alternatives where they exist. It's about making every pound work for the dignity of the survivor. There is, however, a significant barrier that no policy can solve alone. The digital divide. As of mid-2024, approximately 2.3 million people in the UK over the age of 65 do not use the internet. In an era where support is increasingly digitized, the NCCF is making a direct plea for veterans to reach out by phone or mail. They are determined that no veteran should be left in the dark simply because they aren't online. Because ultimately, this isn't about data, it's about people. I'm reminded of the words of veteran John Matthews, who witnessed the tests on Christmas Island in 1957. He said, "We didn't serve for recognition or rewards. We served because it was our duty. But now, in our final years, we just want to know that service meant something, that we won't be forgotten." The Ground Zero grants are, at their core, a tool for social inclusion. They ensure that those who stood at the center of our nation's nuclear history are not pushed to the margins of our society in their final years. As we draw this episode to a close, let's reflect on the three most critical takeaways from this new initiative. First, the care gap is a present and growing danger to the well-being of our veterans. Second, the Ground Zero grants provide a structured 12-month bridge to ensure that care remains affordable and dignified. And third, the charity is calling on all eligible members, veterans, families, and descendants to come forward. If you are struggling with care costs that exceed state support, the message is clear. Reach out. If we zoom out from the financial assessments and the grant ceilings, we see the broader implications. How we treat this specific group of veterans is a test of our national character. It is the practical fulfillment of the Armed Forces Covenant, the solemn promise that those who serve will not be disadvantaged by that service. It leaves us with a thought-provoking question. As a society, do we have a collective responsibility to ensure that the men who stood at Ground Zero never have to worry about the cost of their own dignity? Thank you for listening to this Exposure Magazine podcast feature. This report was based on the lead article from our Winter 2025 issue. We invite you to join our community and read the full investigation into the Forgotten Heroes by visiting our website at www.exposure.press or by referring to your copy of the magazine. This has been a production for the Nuclear Community Charity Fund. Until next time, goodbye.
Thank you for joining us today as we bring Exposure Magazine to life. Like, subscribe and share for more great podcasts.